So, I have a fun story for you. Not really. Good morning. We are still waiting for a call from the people, the hospital or the providers. We have no idea, and I only have 6 little containers of formula left, so hopefully we figure this out soon. Hey guys, good evening. So I have a fun story for you. Not really. So the people actually never called us back, right? And so we were just waiting forever for them to call us back. So we called them, and Mom was on the phone with them forever. She was on the phone a lot. Anyway, so she called and called and called, and she was on the phone for the past 2 days with them. And it didn't work. So she called them, and so at the hospital they told us that we needed to change our provider, our medical provider, because they were like, oh, it doesn't have the formula that you need. So then they're like, well, you need to call and cancel. So on Monday, when we got back on Saturday, and so they weren't open until Monday, so we called on Monday and we canceled. And then they were supposed to fax over our information to a new company, and they were supposed to deliver, and they never delivered. So we called the company, and they were like, oh, well, we don't know, we don't have any information about you. So we called the hospital, and well, we faxed it over. So we called back, and they're like, they don't know anything. And so then our company, that our original company that is our provider, our original provider, it called us on Tuesday. And it was they were like, hey, so I know you just called and canceled, but we have here an order from the hospital. Do you want us to fill it, or what's going on? So we called them, and they never called back. And so then they finally called back today, and we called them back, and they were like, oh, well, they do have the formula. And so we never even had to cancel our provider. So we're on the same provider that we were on before, the provider that gave us the pump and the provider that gave us this and all that stuff. But it was the same provider, and they told us that we had to change providers, but we really didn't have to. And then they never sent our information, and they never gave us any indication that there was confusion or anything, and they just didn't tell us anything. And so we ended up not having enough formula, and so I'm going to be short tonight, and then they're supposed to deliver tomorrow, but we don't even know. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating because they just kind of dropped us. They were just like, oh, okay. And then we were like, well, we need formula for the next 2 days because I was short last night and I'm going to be even shorter tonight. And they were like, oh, well, you're going to be fine. And we were like, what? So it's so frustrating because they told us that we needed to cancel, and then we didn't have to cancel, and then they told us that I don't even know how to communicate this. It's so frustrating. I don't understand why communication has to be so bad. Communication was atrocious at the hospital. They would not tell us anything. They would tell us, actually, they were like, oh, we're going to start you on this medicine, and we're going to stop you on this medicine. And then the nurses would come in with 2 different medicines, and we're like, what are you doing? And then they would be in the room, and they'd say, this is what we're going to do. And then they'd leave, and they'd put in an order for something else. And they would not communicate anything. And it was so frustrating. And so now that we're home, and they're still not communicating anything. And it's crazy. And so I didn't have enough formula last night, and I don't have enough formula for tonight, and they're supposed to deliver tomorrow, and it's going to be the same company, but they totally just ignored us for 2 days. And so I went without enough formula for 2 days, and then if they don't deliver tomorrow, I'm completely out of formula. I'm completely out of formula after half after tonight. I'm going to be completely out. And they just never delivered. And so then they were like, well, we can't deliver anymore because, tomorrow's the start of February. So So we have to send you supplies for the month of February, and so they're not going to give us, they were supposed to deliver on Tuesday at the very latest, and they never delivered on Tuesday and they never delivered on Wednesday, so I ran out of formula, which is so frustrating because they just literally ignored us. They knew it was a problem and they were just like, oh, well, we just don't want to deal with it, she'll be fine. And it's so frustrating, guys. It is so frustrating. But that's my story. It's such a mess. But we finally figured out our provider. It's going to be the same provider. And they're going to hopefully deliver tomorrow. They said to call by noon if they haven't delivered yet, and then they're going to track the order, but it has no tracking number, so I don't know how they're going to track the order because it's a delivery. I don't even know. It's confusing. But I'm just glad that hopefully we finally have it figured out, and I am so grateful to Mom. She is awesome. Shout out. She was on the phone for 2 days trying to figure this out, and it was so frustrating, and there were hours on hold, and just, oh my gosh, it was such a mess, and it's still a mess, but hopefully by tomorrow I'll have my formula, and we'll be able to get me back on however much. Also, okay, when we left the hospital, the dietitian was like, okay, this is how much she needs. And so, you know, the dietitian literally went to school for years just to study, you know, how much your body is supposed to have. And so that what happens is when someone gets a feeding tube, the dietitian comes in and she's like, this is how much she's supposed to have. The doctor writes the order for that, and then that's how much you have. So the dietitian was like, this is how much she needs. And then the doctor wrote a different order. The doctor was like, oh, I don't think she needs that much. I think she'll be fine. So he wrote it for less, which is frustrating because that's not what the dietitian said. The dietitian said that my body needed this much to sustain. The dietitian said that I needed such and such amount to sustain myself, and the doctor was like, "Oh, I don't think she needs that much." So that's what we found out today, that the doctor wrote a different order. So that's frustrating too. But you know, this is where grace comes into play, and we just kind of have to be graceful, and that's hard. Grace is hard. I struggle with that. It's just been very frustrating, and then I'm not getting enough nutrition, and it's just, like, today was the first day that I was even able to try and attempt to eat because it hurt so bad to vomit because they just drilled a hole in my stomach. So I tried, and it didn't go very well today, and so I'm really sore from vomiting. But I mean, like, I'm not getting enough nutrition, and I still wasn't even able to try and make up for that. So it's just, it's frustrating, and the doctors, like, they're not listening and they're not communicating, and it's just, it's a mess, and it's so hard. It is so hard to just, you know, sit back and just be graceful. But, you know, everybody makes mistakes, and you know, it's hard. But, you know, it'll all be okay. My mom has this saying, she says it'll all come out in the wash. So, it'll all come out in the wash. So, next time I talk to you, hopefully I'll have my formula. So, I'll update you guys tomorrow on how that goes. But for now, I'm going to say goodnight, and I will update you guys tomorrow. Good night.